And then we also, it looks, is that Joel King? Joel, Mr. King, if you could take yourself off of mute. Just want to make sure we got everything working properly here. Using the bottom left
Okay,
little
there we go.
microphone.
Think we're good?
Okay, great.
Okay.
You are Joel King and the owner of the property, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. Are you waiting on anyone else to join us here before we get started from the applicant owner side?
Someone from the pool install company said they would be on, but more just to be there in case something came up that I couldn't answer. So in essence, we can start, I think. I mean, I'm the one that's presenting, quote unquote.
Okay, great. Well, if anyone tries to join midway through the hearing, I'll let them in.
Okay.
But yeah, if you're comfortable with getting started, let's go ahead and get into it. I got to read through our hearing script. This will just cover what the procedure for the hearing is going to be. And then we'll begin. So this is the April 9th, 2025 session of the zoning hearing examiner docket. Again, my name is David Sturkey. I'll be presiding over the hearing today. The case before us is case number ZH20250024. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and any other parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the zoning hearing examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any other party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant, the applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. So Mr. King, for our purposes here today, that'll be your opportunity to tell me about the project, any background you think is important, what exactly it is you're trying to do, the zoning relief that's needed to complete the project, and then, of course, why you think that zoning relief should be granted, why it's appropriate, why it makes sense for this case. If there were anyone here from the public, they'd have an opportunity to speak after you'd presented your case. I'll then hear from the zoning department. Mr. Sheldon would like to add any testimony. I'll give him that opportunity at that time. I'll then go back to you, allow you to respond to anything Trey has said, and answer any other questions that I may have, and then make any closing statements. After all presentations have been made, I'll close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or make any comments. All right. Last thing I need to do is just swear in all of our witnesses. So if you intend on providing testimony, the zoning code requires that I swear you in. So I'm going to do that now collectively with both Mr. King and Mr. Sheldon. So if you could just raise your right hand and answer out loud. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, great. It looks like we may have lost Trey. It looks like he's frozen there. So I'll get him sworn in once he regains connection. But
He looks frozen.
he does. He's either frozen or very scared of something. Yeah.
I have to, and I said for right now, it's just the three of us. Is that fair?
So it's just the three of us. This is recorded,
Okay.
and we do stream this online too, so that anyone from the public is able to observe. So there may be folks watching the stream.
Okay.
I can't tell right now from what I'm seeing, but
Okay.
for our purposes right now, yes, it's just the three of us that will be participating. But again, if someone does join from the public at any time, I typically will give them an opportunity to come in. But yeah, it's just us right now.
Okay. I have to say, I'm a little old school. Yeah, doing this the Zoom way. How long have you guys been doing this? It's like COVID or something?
Yeah, we transitioned during COVID, and we found that for most of these types of hearings, that this is just a little bit more convenient. It allows
Yeah.
people sometimes to share their screens and whatever they have on their computers, which was a little bit more compatible,
Right.
or a little bit more efficient than the way we had the old room set up in person. So
Yeah.
we decided to stick with this, but most of our boards still do in person.
Okay. I've been down the path before in person, so I'm very familiar
Gotcha.
with that and lugging all my visuals down and all that. So a little bit different, but that's all right.
Yeah,
That's all good. It's all good.
sure. Yeah, and I have the application materials over here too, so if you want me to share something, I can do that, or if you have
I
something you
think
want
we're
to
good.
share.
Actually, I did put, I tried to be a good little student here. I put together a little PowerPoint to kind of talk us through what I think is important. So I've got that queued up and ready.
Okay, yeah, the
Are
floor
we
is yours.
still okay?
Feel free to
Okay.
share. Yeah,
JD, who
well,
you see, he's with the pool company.
yeah,
Okay.
let me get him checked in real quick
Trey.
before you get
Okay.
started. Let me see if Trey, are you with us? And Mr. Bagley, if you're with us, if you could unmute, start your camera for us.
Yep, I'm here. I do not have a camera that I
Okay.
can use.
Okay. We typically require a camera to be activated to provide testimony. It sounds like Mr. King is prepared to move forward with the presentation, but let's see how it goes and we can
Okay, that's
try to troubleshoot if necessary. Mr. Bagley, you can also sign in on your phone. If your phone has a camera,
Okay, yep, I
um,
can do that.
that's another way you can participate. But make
Okay,
sure you
yep,
sign out of this after you get your phone up, so
yep,
there's not
I'll hop on
negative
there now.
feedback there. All right, sounds good. Thanks.
seems like Trey seems to be our
Yeah.
challenge here.
I think we can move forward. Trey, I've read Trey's staff report, so I think I understand his position,
Okay.
but let's go ahead and start.
Okay. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do the screen share and hopefully we'll be good.
Okay.
Let's see.
Yep. I can see your PowerPoint there.
Okay. All right. There we go. So, all right. Here we go. So, a little bit of background, the variance request, what we're asking for, and to back up. I've lived in my house about 20 years. Been a Hyde Park Mountain Lookout resident for about 40 years. So I've lived almost my whole adult life down here. Renovated homes, I've built new, living where we are for this amount of time is the longest we've ever been in a house. And where this whole project comes from was a conscious decision between my wife and I, thinking about our retirement, thinking about living out the rest of our life and where is that going to be. And we made the decision that we wanted to be in this house and feeling that we live in a great neighborhood, being Mount Lookout. I think I'll be able to show you what I feel makes this lot that I'm on unique and lends itself well to what we're doing. And it was a decision like that. You know, we want to live in Cincinnati, be here during the warm months, putting in what I'll affectionately refer to as a plunge pool, if you will. We're not trying to put in a large pool. The pool itself is 12 feet wide at its widest, 26 feet in length, 5.5 feet maximum depth. So I think the industry nowadays affectionately refers to these as plunge pools. And this was really an idea for my wife and I. We're not a young family with young kids that are trying to turn the neighborhood into a party scene. And this was something we just wanted for ourselves. I wouldn't have tried to do this if the lot didn't lend itself to it in terms of privacy and seclusion. If this pool was sitting to where somebody walking by could see it, I wouldn't even be doing it. I wouldn't even think to do it. I wouldn't want to do it. I have no desire to be on display to anybody walking by my house. So we thought it would lend itself to that. And what I did based on typical zoning requirements, your requirements say the pool needs to be in the rear yard. That's the basic requirement. So I looked at my property, which is what you see here, and the lines that I struck there would be what I would submit would be traditional setbacks. I've got my front yard here, the front of my house, that's my front walk here. Front corners of the house based on the build of the house and original blueprints. Side yard, typically. And what I would submit would be my rear yard. So I had that in mind. And what I did is I then cited a pool, and that's not the exact shape of the pool, but for the spirit of what we're talking about, I cited it so it would be in what I thought was the rear yard. And what I find out after we submit that due to the nature and Trey, if he's there yet, I mean, obviously, feel free to jump
Yeah.
in. But my understanding is that because Arnold Street here curves around the back of my house, as opposed to coming to a corner, that curve is the nuance that says now I don't technically or officially have a rear yard. So the response from zoning was that I need a variance to place this pool other in a location other than my rear yard. So as I look at this and I'm like, well, what do I want to submit? What would be my argument? First is, do I try to convince everybody that in all practicality, yes, I have a rear yard? And if we agreed to that, then the location of the pool would conform to the zoning requirement of a rear yard. I also wonder too and Trey would know this, and I tried to look it up and I couldn't see it. If that was a corner as opposed to a curve, then that would trigger a determination that I do have a rear yard if there was a corner there, and maybe we wouldn't even be here. And I'm not sure if that's a fair statement, but I think the nuance of this curve as opposed to a corner is what's triggering, the lack of a rear yard designation.
Greg,
So
do you
What
wanna
would really have to
just,
happen here? Like, you technically do have a rear yard. It's just immediately south, like off that corner of your house, back underneath the garage. I kind of detailed it in my staff report because you can't have an accessory structure in a side yard or a front yard. So whether we found that to be front or side yard over where the pool is, it's kind of immaterial insofar as the only real location where you could be back like behind the house would either be right where your driveway comes out of your garage somewhere back there, or else in the, starting over toward the steep hillside part toward Richwood. So if these went to perfectly defined corners, like in other words, if it wasn't just kind of a continuous curve, even if
yeah,
they were perfect 90-degree angles here in three different streets, the current location would still be at least in the side yard, if not the front. Does that make sense? Just not the rear.
kinda. Like, let's say if you can see my cursor, what if there was a corner right here where my arrow is? What would happen then? Would I have a rear yard or would I not have?
Yes, but where your pool is right now in the flat area that makes a lot of common sense to have it would be in the side yard.
So what
You'd
you're
be in like a,
saying, so just to understand, so if are you looking at this corner here or
yeah, yes.
okay,
I mean,
well this corner to help everybody understand that's not the main part of the house. That actually what the back door of the house is right here. That was a covered porch when I bought the house.
I,
The
I
actual
understand. I understand that, sir. I'm just trying to explain. This is what I
okay.
do. I've done it for, a decade, and I'm just explaining. You can't. You have a unique lot where you have street frontages on, even if it was perfectly 90-degree angles, you would have at least three frontages. So the majority of your lot, you just couldn't have an accessory structure. The rule is not just a front yard, but accessory structures must be located in the rear yard. So it's somewhat immaterial for the purposes of you have a unique property with a unique layout, a very hilly area dropping down to Richwood, and the only place you could really put a pool that would be, if these were perfectly 90-degree, like you said, street, is back immediately the south point. So like back where your turnaround is for your garage, near the property that's to the south of you. And that's kind of, I mean, I put in my staff report, it's completely impractical because the house was built way before zoning could ever foresee any of these things. And you'd have to put the pool in the middle of essentially in the middle of your driveway, or over by, by the driveway
Yeah,
turnaround behind the
call it
garage.
to call it the
yeah,
official rear yard.
yeah, Mr.
Yeah.
King, I think what it's less about the right angle or intersection, and it's more about the fact that three sides of the property have street frontages
Okay.
that creates the practical difficulty here. I think either way, the argument stands that,
Okay.
you know,
Fair enough. So, okay. So with that being said, uh, so what we did, siting of the house and topography wise, and so what I'm hoping is still, the ability to justify this, the location where we want to put it, understanding the elevations. There's a flat location here. The pool sits at, you guys are kind of you're in my little, I can't move you around there. I don't know if you can see there. So the pool elevation is at 718. There's a retaining wall that sits about 4 feet higher than the pool. Street elevations are actually lower than the elevation of the pool. So what it created and this is to help understand even further. Here's my neighborhood. And as you see, we're in a very unique property. I sit considerable distance from adjacent properties. My lot's laid out considerably different than other properties along Arnold. You see what I've done. I'm showing distances to adjacent houses. And again, this gets back to my desire. Where this pool sits, you cannot even, if you're on, and I've got pictures, if you're right here, standing right here, you can't even see where this pool would be. So my hope is that you'll see what I'm trying to do and see that it's not impeding on anybody or causing any eyesores or whatever it is that would prevent you from allowing me to do this. Did some averages. If you look at this even closer, I'm an average of 121 feet from my adjacent homeowners. That number would be even bigger if I measured it from the pool location. I measured it from the corners of the houses. So what I hope you'll see and consider is that doing this keeps me still at a considerable distance from the neighbors. Pictures here, this is what it looks like. So this picture here, if I go back, is standing right here at this intersection of the street where my cursor is. And that's looking at the properties. I mentioned if you're walking along the street, you're actually at a lower elevation. The elevation rises, levels off at the top, and then the pool sits 4 feet below this level. This is looking at that same location back down Arnold Street. That's the view. Look, standing here, looking down Arnold Street, you see again the nature of the lot. I took these pictures this week, a couple days ago. So minimal coverage and growth. Things are just starting to grow. Trees haven't come in yet. But what I want to try to impress upon you again, privacy and seclusion. Anybody walking along from this street all the way around, and this is my driveway with the step up to where that pool area is. Pool would sit behind here. There's absolutely zero sight line. No one can see that pool from anywhere along that arc of that street. Whether you're in Arnold Street here, walking around, here's my driveway. That's where that last view was. So what I'm hoping you'll agree with is that even though the house is what it is and the setbacks are what they are, that it still allows me the opportunity to do something secluded and away from everybody else and not be something that everybody has to look at every time they walk by my house. And that, I'm fortunate enough distance and topography that gives me, the chance to pull that off. In summary, in reality, what I'm hoping to do is build that small pool, something that my wife and I can enjoy, located in practically, maybe not black and white, would still be considered the rear yard. And interesting enough, and when you talk about precedents, I remember when I bought this house 20 years ago, and I did a lot of work. We had a big permit taken out, completely gutted this place, renovated it. And when it came time to put the retaining wall in, I remember calling down to zoning, talking to someone. They pulled up the maps, looked at it, and practicality, and they said, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I see what you're talking about. Yeah, for all intents and purposes, it's your rear yard, no problem." And I was allowed to do the work that we did. It's private, it's secluded. I setting it up so there's ample distance from adjacent properties. And lastly, what I hope is really to allow us to realize what I call a property right, enjoying my rear yard, that most other people have that luxury of enjoying. And me, due to the nature of the street and the lot, it's causing what I feel is an undue, burden just by the nature of the street. And with all things being equal, I have more privacy and seclusion than anybody else. Anybody else that wants to put a pool in on this street, they're going to put a pool that's going to be 20 feet from the neighbor's house, which probably, if you're, talking noise, nuisance, whatever, you would allow a pool in someone else's yard that would be more of a nuisance to the adjacent property owners than what I'm proposing. So what I'm really hoping is that just, a little bit of common sense and practicality prevails, and that you can see what I'm trying to do, and that I'm not trying to turn the world upside down here, and provide that relief or that designation, or allow me, if there is no way of saying, yeah, it's a rear yard, then granting the relief to allow this pool to be situated in the side yard, I guess, if that's the official, what that's being called. So that's what I'm hoping. I was hoping this isn't complicated. I couldn't find, it's hard for me to find precedents. There's a pool that just got built around the corner on Principia or Hayward. And I'll argue there, that pool's probably closer to the next door neighbor's house than this would be. And again, keeping it small. The goal is to any visible sight lines. The goal is to landscape heavily and keep it secluded, and just give my wife and I somewhere to hang out. I mean, we've belonged to Cincinnati Sports Mall for 150 years. They've got the little adult pool there, but that's been overrun with young people, quote unquote. And, we feel like we're getting pushed out, and we're just looking for a little area that we can kick back and relax in our retirement and live my life out here, and carry me out in a pine box from my pool, 20 or 30 years from now, or however long I can hang in there. So that's my story, guys. I'm not looking to build a high rise. I'm not looking to build a house. I'm just trying to hide a little splash pool, behind my wall and behind my bushes, and, ride off into the sunset, to be honest. So
Okay.
that's my story, guys. I can't make it any more complicated than that.
Okay.
Here, okay, there.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry. I thought you were
No,
finished.
that's good. That was the
With
was the last screen, so that was good.
Oh, okay.
Unless
All right.
anybody wanted to see any more of that. So
Okay.
that's, I don't know. Hopefully it made sense to you guys. I'm hoping the images, the topography, that's really the key here. There's this, where that pool sits, and it's been, honestly, I've always thought the neatest part about my lot, if I sit right there, nobody can see me. It is the most private spot around here. It's amazing. It's really cool that I have it. And, I will, hopefully be able to take advantage of it.
Okay. All right, great. Thanks, Mr. King. I appreciate the thorough presentation, and I really do appreciate you bringing the PowerPoint and the photos. That's really helpful for me.
I hope it helps. I mean, there are, those images, I think, because I always know you guys, it's hard. I mean, and, you're looking at blueprints, you're looking at one-dimensional things. It's, to get the feel and the spirit of these things, it's tough unless you go out there. And I've lived it. I mean, I've been through variance hearings for historical preservation, hillside overlay. I mean, I've been through it, so I know, how these things can be difficult. So I wanted to try to help you get a feel for, exactly that spot, if I was able to do that, hopefully.
Okay. Let's hear from Trey. Trey, do you want to provide some testimony in addition to your staff report?
Sure, you can go ahead quickly, so let me in. Sorry, when I froze.
Oh, that's
You
right.
started to sound like a
Do you
robot,
swear
and then
or
everything,
affirm
and
that
then
the testimony
everything.
you shall provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
So I don't, Mr. King, I don't know whether you had an opportunity to look at my staff report that was uploaded, but I mean, you
I've
didn't.
not.
Oh, okay. So a lot of what we just, I agree with the majority of, like the vast majority of what you just said, and a lot of it was put forth in my staff report. Part of what I'd explained to you, you did a very good presentation here and stuff. You're a layman in this context, right? Not
Right.
a land use attorney or something like that, or an architect or real estate agent.
Right.
part of the reason for variances and for other forms of zoning relief are for unique circumstances like that. That's what they were designed for, is to, you know, it's when someone has a hardship or something that creates a practical difficulty in otherwise doing what they would be able to do that their neighbors might. That's the very purpose of having a hearing like this. So you know, you do have a unique lot in that, you know, you do have that privacy because the house is back from the street, you know, significantly. And you talked about the topography. The topography is very significant, just for the record, very significant toward the Richwood side. I mean, it drops a good 20 something feet down to Richwood. So this is in the hillside district. So and I have this in my staff report, but for practical purposes, if you located a pool over there, you not only would have needed the existing relief, but you would have probably had to build some kind of big retaining wall or something to terrace out, you know, and steps going down that would have necessitated hillside relief as well. You just happen to have this part of your yard that's best screened, you know, from the neighbors and for you. The privacy thing cuts both ways, right? You don't want to see cars and people while you're swimming or hanging out in your lounge chair, but some other people might not want to, you know, not want to see that either.
Right.
No offense. I mean,
No, I get
I
it.
do
No, I understand
consider
that
adverse
completely.
effects for neighbors and so on. So,
Yeah.
yeah, in fact, your yard there is so thoroughly screened that when I first went around,
Oh, did
I
you go
didn't.
out? Did you come out?
No, I was using Street View,
Oh,
but I didn't notice. I at first it was hard to notice the wrought iron fence, or you know, the metal decorative fence. And it, you know, so that's something that I pointed out in my staff report and to you know, Mr. Sturkey, so you'd have a good understanding that you have that metal fence that wraps from your garage area all across that wall and then all the way around. And you also have about 20 feet of right of way that is also vegetated. So it's not just your property and the fence that's vegetated, but there's a big part of the right of way that goes, you know, between your property and the actual actual street there. So
and
so
regarding fencing, to add, actually, we're going to isolate the pool further. There's going to be another section of fence that's going to be right there at that pool with another gate.
you do need to be careful of that. Just be advised, because you are in a side yard, not in a rear yard. So you'd be better off having some kind of shrubs or something, or you'd come right back here for a variance, because you can't have opaque fence in a side yard.
I can't have a piece of that same metal fence.
Oh yeah, sure. That's
Yeah,
4
that's what it's
feet
going to
tall.
be. It's
Okay,
going to be
that's
that
4
metal
feet
fence.
tall and visible, and you may
Yeah.
even need that to enclose it for building code purposes. I'm not sure about that, but oftentimes, sadly enough, you know, people put fences around their pools
Oh, I know the
thinking a neighborhood kid could end up drowning in here, and a lot of times without the building code requirements of having buzzers at the door or some kind of cover or other things, you know, a lot of times it's somebody's grandkid that, you know, gets out of that house and just tragically ends up, you know, in the pool. So
Right.
I can imagine that maybe a building code requirement that they have you doing additional fencing.
Yeah.
But
So that's that. So that, yeah, the
yeah.
metal fencing will continue across with another gate.
So to sum it all up in a practical, I mean, you have an impracticality here because of your lot orientation. You have a decent sized parcel, but very little of it is rear yard at all. It's just that part, right, you know, to the south of the house. And
Right.
that's where the garage is located, and where and it's difference of topography with that big retaining wall. That's where your driveway is. I mean, you just have no practical place to put the pool except on the steep hillside toward Richwood, which would make a darn bit of sense.
Right.
You know, and would just will require more zoning relief and moving a bunch of dirt and putting retaining wall in. So
Right.
you were able to do it in the flattest area of your yard, place it there where you don't even need zoning relief for the hillside, because you're only about, what is it, about a 5 foot deep pool, roughly?
Yeah. 5.5.
So, you know, I mean, then you're just doing flat work around it for the patio. So,
Right.
you know, I think this makes sense in terms of the requested relief. You don't really have any alternative area. You chose the best area, which also happens to have the most screening for, you know, any adverse effects for neighbors and for privacy for yourself. So I recommended approval of the
Okay, great.
relief.
Thank you.
Thanks, Trey.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. I don't think I have any. maybe I have one question. I think that I generally agree with Trey and with your arguments, Mr. King. I think, maintaining that vegetative screening though is, as the property currently sits, I think that provides a lot of the protections, that are necessary to approve this variance. Would you be opposed to a condition of the approval being maintenance of some vegetative screening or
No,
buffering
no, that'd be
around
fine.
that? I know that's
Actually,
something that you said you've wanted, so.
yeah. I'm going to invest more in that and, seclude it even more. But no, I have no problem with that. I'm fine. I'd be
Okay.
fine with that.
Yeah. And I know that's what you said, and I trust that. But as you know, not to bring up the pine box again, but whenever you do leave this house, someone
Yeah.
else will be,
Yeah.
in charge of that pool and that screening. And, I'd like to have something that, as this, does eventually transfer hands, that ensures that screen stays in place. So,
Okay.
I just wanted to see what your reaction to, maintaining vegetation, doesn't have to be the same vegetation, but some sort of vegetative screening
I'm
around
fine.
the pool. Okay.
Perfectly fine.
Anything else you want to say in closing or otherwise, or any response to any of Trey's comments before we adjourn?
No, I appreciate the effort, the time, Trey, to look into that and, and scrutinize it enough so it makes sense. It'd be easy to just blow past these things and not find the details. So I appreciate that very, very much.
Great. Well, let's leave it at that. I've had a chance to review the application materials and the staff report. I would call this like a side rear yard, I guess. If we want to be, super precise about it, I do think it's oriented towards the back of the front of the house. I think that, based on the topography, change from the pool to the street, the size of the pool, and the three frontages, that does create or the three frontages do create practical difficulties. And some of the elements of the property, I think, make this more practical. And so let me put it this way. I think it would be impractical to strictly enforce the zoning code to this application. Based on that, and the testimony that I've heard here today, I am going to approve the application. I think I will include some requirement that vegetative screening remains, or some screening remains. We did want to put in a fence there, or a higher fence or a more opaque fence. I think there would be some potential zoning implications there as well, where you might need to come back through. But I think as long as that vegetative screening is there, that would be sufficient to reduce any adverse visual impacts for neighbors. So any questions about any of that?
No, fair enough.
Okay.
No, that sounds perfectly fine.
Okay. I do need to formalize that decision in a written decision. And so I mentioned at the beginning that typically takes about 2 weeks. I've got a queue of cases that I need to get through before I can write this decision. But as soon as I finish that decision, I'll put it into a PDF. I'll email it to everybody who's in the hearing here today. As soon as Trey sees that email, he can approve the zoning permitting on his end, and you can take the next steps.
Okay. Fair
Any
enough.
questions?
No, appreciate your
Okay.
time. Appreciate your decision very much.
Okay. Hope you enjoy that pool for many, many
I was
years.
gonna say, you guys come wandering around. You never know. Come wandering around the neighborhood.
I'm gonna be turned into ashes for my 4 kids to dispose of myself, but you might want to upgrade from that pine box. Maybe a nice
Maybe something a
walnut.
little better. That's
Yeah.
the
Nice
sad
walnut
part,
finish.
the sad part is I say, when you talk about retirement, I'm not retiring. I gotta work. There's gonna be a long time before I'm really sitting there
Well,
retired.
hopefully some of that's on your
Yeah.
laptop. Hopefully some of that's on your laptop next to the pool.
At least it'll be there. That's the big part. I appreciate you guys very much.
No
Yeah.
problem.
You're very
Good luck
welcome.
with the project. We are